Okay, so I will keep everybody muted for now. And if you guys have some questions, just type them in the chat. It may be that throughout the presentation, I will answer some of the questions. And so just so that I can keep this nice and tidy and valuable for everybody, just like type in your questions in the chat and we will get to them at the end. And so welcome to this little webinar I put together. I appreciate your time and attention, your most valuable resources, and I don't take it for granted that you guys are uh, like spending some of it for what I have to say. So thank you for that. So, tiny habits for quantum health beyond food and exercise. There is a reason why I put this subtitle, and it has to do with a little backstory, and it has to do with how I perceive the health world today. Not to say that food and exercise isn't important, but let's call it like necessary, but not sufficient. So, and I feel like there are many pieces that tends to be ignored, and that I was hoping to contribute to like fill in the gap. So that's kind of the idea behind this webinar. And for me, I really want to introduce a different paradigm for health. That's what most people are aware of. And then just practical things that everybody can do on a daily basis to optimize health in a really effortless way. Because that's one of the beautiful things with working at the quantum scale. And I will come in a second to what quantum really means. Uh, it's that when we work at the quantum scale, things are non-linear, which means tiny things, tiny habits can create massive effects, positive effects. So that's what's really exciting about that stuff. So the agenda for today, I will start with the bike story, which is basically the backstory involving a bike. So that's the bike story. Then I will introduce this new paradigm that I'm talking about. This will probably be the longest part of the webinar. So theory, much some theory, um, but it should be quite eye-opening, at least I hope. Then I will share some why is it relevant clinically and in daily life, and not just like a set of theories that we just keep for academia. And then 5 things to make your mornings grander, 11 daily habits for effortless energy, and the top 5 tweaks to create the perfect evening routine with one little secret. And I will finish with a gift for you all. So let's start with the bike story. What's that? So just so you understand a little bit where I come from, and I pulled up like an actual picture of my bike. Um, that's related to this story. It was 5 years ago. So when I was about 20 years old, uh, was the first time I left my homeland of France to study abroad. It's also where I learned to speak English, totally unrelated. And it was the first time I lived by myself. Even though I had roommates, it was the first time I was actually living in my own room, cooking for myself, and so on. And so I was like, you know what? I would really get into it. And at that age, at that time, I believe I was already taking better care of myself than 99% of people my age. So I was eating organic foods. I was exercising consistently, strength training. I was doing sauna, was fasting. 9 p.m. in bed, what most people that age would call boring, right? I was meditating, practicing yoga, foam rolling, all that stuff. And the thing is that I was really feeling back at 20 with all of that. The bike story is basically, I remember vividly, one day, it was like just a tiny slope between where I slept and the university. And there was this tiny slope, and one day I was just too weak to climb it on my bike. So I literally had, as a 20-year-old, I had to walk my bike to the university because I was too weak. I also had knee pain, so like I felt pain in my knee just walking. Had digestive issues, felt heavy, bloated. I had the energy levels of a hospital patient a bit later, like around 22, 23 years old. Sometimes I needed to take 2 naps a day to function, and my back was not so resilient. Like I had to pay attention to whenever I had to bend over, like even to tie up my shoes. And so all of this kickstarted my pursuit of vitality. And so that's where I am today. And that's why I'm talking to you, because I love learning and I love teaching even more. So here I am. So that was for the bike story. Now let's talk a little bit about this new paradigm. And I will start with the word quantum, because this paradigm involves the field of quantum biology. And I know I've used this word in the title of my webinar, and I know it's quite a clickbait because it's just like a trend nowadays. Like everything is quantum. And I would like to take a second to just explain like what is quantum? What does it even mean? And initially the word was used for quantum physics, which you guys have probably heard a little bit about. And the reason why it's called quantum physics is because it's the physics that work at the tiniest of scales, what we call the quanta. So it's basically the study of the tiniest shit we can observe, very much. And it's so tiny that there is a constant that was created for it. You don't have to read it, but it's like 10 to the minus 24 to 34 power in terms of how tiny it is. That's called the Planck constant. And basically, it's like the tiny things that we can observe, tiniest things we can observe, and they behave in weird ways, very weird ways. And that's why we had to come up with a whole new set of physics, because Newtonian or classical physics, the physics we use for like cars and like astronomy, predicting the planets, orbits, gravity, and everything, that's classical or Newtonian physics. It works at this tiny scale. So that's what quantum is, and basically it involves tiny things. That's it. Nothing fancy. And I know it's like a nice marketing term nowadays, but I just wanted to make that clear. Well, let's start by answering the question, what are you? Well, you are a human, I believe. And a human is composed of many things, including tissues and organs, right? So far, so good. And you also know from biology class that like you have also what are called cells inside the body, cytoplasm and membrane and nucleus, and you have a lot of cells. Maybe them under the microscope in biology class, but most, well, many people stop there at biology. Then there's still another set of people who go one step further. This is actually in between this and this. It's the step of molecules. And molecules mean chemistry and biochemistry in the case of living organisms. And biochemistry and biology are basically the two foundational sciences of medicine, of health, right? However, what's really often ignored is that at a more fundamental level than molecules are atoms. Here, atoms. And of course, you can go deeper, and we'll go there. Atoms, subatomic particles, waves, vibrations, and so on. So the reason I bring that up is like, yeah, just so that you open your mind to like, okay, so I'm not just like muscles and organs, I'm not just cells. It's not just biochemical reactions, it's like all the way to the atom and the subatomic particles and vibrations, right? So that's exactly what we are exploring now. At the most fundamental level, your body, it's just a sack of atoms. That's it. The magical thing is that it's somehow combining in such a way as to create life. Just meditate on that for a second. And atoms, as I was saying, they are made up of a proton, or like several protons and several neutrons, depending on the atom nucleus, and electrons spinning. But they are really spinning. It's like a bottle. They are spinning around it, And what's funny is that 99.99999% of atoms are actually empty space. They are actually made of empty space for the most part. And one of the things that's really surprising about quantum physics is that at this scale, at this tiny little scale, that nothing is certain. Everything is vibrating, and we can only work with probabilities. It's absolutely impossible to predict where electrons will be at any given time. That's called the uncertainty principle from Heisenberg. And it's just like the way things are at the tiniest level, right? And so to go from this quantum soup, like all these things vibrating and the atoms and the electrons spinning and it's unpredictable, to a sentient life form, which are a soup. To go from this quantum soup to a sentient life form from you to you requires two things. You need an organizing intelligence, which is centralized information, as well as the energy to maintain order and like to make order from the soup. And that's what we call creating syntropy, which is the opposite of entropy. And entropy, it's a word that comes from thermodynamics. You probably have heard the second law of thermodynamics, which basically states that if left unchecked, things become chaotic. And the example that's pretty common is what happens if you don't tidy up your bedroom? It becomes chaotic, right? But so to make it ordered, you need the energy to do it, right? And the information, the intelligence to know like what goes where, right? So that's what we call syntropy. It's the opposite of entropy, which is increasing chaos over time. And so most healthcare today, whether conventional or alternative, ignores that foundational truth, that it's mostly at the fundamental level about information and energy. And we'll unpack both of these. And so that's really what life is, right? It goes from chaos to magic, basically. And just like, if you really think about it, you realize that it's like, oh, like it's absolutely insane. And I will live forever after grateful for that because it's a miracle, right? And so what's interesting is that energy and information are both contained within electromagnetic fields. And I really like this quote that frequency precedes form. That is, the frequency is what will create physical form, right? And so the way it works, I will give you a little visual. You guys have probably heard about cymatics, and if not, you will see an example in a few seconds. But basically, it's about revealing in like something in a way that we can physically see with our eyes that vibrations create patterns, geometry, right? And so I will just show you how it looks like in a video, and I will comment on that just after. So they are putting salt on the plate. Pretty cool, right? So basically it shows that depending on the frequency, which is what is measured in hertz, which hertz is just a measure of how many vibrations per second. That's it. Depending on the frequency, you have different patterns, right? And so it really shows in like practically speaking, what frequency precedes form mean, right? And so I know that there might be some people skeptical, like, so how does it translate to the human body? Because it's just like salt on a metal plate vibrating. Well, let me a bioacoustic engineer from the UK, I believe, who designed a device that allows us to observe droplets of water reacting to sound, to vibration. And that's just a snapshot of it. And he actually shows with this device that droplets of water, which, by the way, we are made of 99.9% of water by molecular count, 70% roughly by weight, but 99.9% by molecular count. And it shows that it's clearly responding to vibration. And so I will just show you once again another video. So there will be some sound and music, and you will see that it's in real time showing what the water droplets are doing. So I won't show much more because it's not really relevant, but you guys see that. And so it's not an animation, it's actually observed inside droplets of water responding to the sound. So it was just like to show you that it's actually, you can actually see it with your own eyes, that electromagnetic fields influence matter. So what is information when it comes to your biology? Well, what matters is what's contained in your environment. And your environment is, you can divide it in your inner environment and your outer. So inner environments, your thoughts, they have their own electromagnetic signature, emotions, heartbeat. Like we can measure the magnetic field of the heart 5 feet away from someone. And same for like the electrical activity of the brain, which changes with thoughts. It can be measured with devices, right? Cell-to-cell communication, bacteria, stored trauma, all of this is part of the whole information makeup of your biology. When it comes to the outer environment, there is the human resonance, which is basically part of the Earth. There is the position of the sun, artificial light, daylight, Wi-Fi, birdsong, and so on. Which, by the way, birdsong is really relaxing to the nervous system. And so there is quite a bit of talk nowadays about blue light. It's becoming more and more popular. And I would just wanted to make this slide to explain why blue light is an important topic. And it's simply because your biology evolved to use blue light, specifically to keep track of time. The reason why it's blue light specifically is because from dawn to dusk, it will vary in a predictable manner. So at dawn, there is no blue light almost. Solar noon, there's the most amount of blue light. And then it will decrease until dusk. So it's predictable, right? And this timekeeping, time tracking, it's done primarily via our eyes. And then from there, it will set the what we call the circadian rhythm for every cell in our body. All right. So the light our eyes are exposed to sets the rhythm. It's the pacemaker for every cell in our body. Which means that your relationship to blue light can either create order or allow chaos. And just to hammer this point home, I will use an analogy that I use quite often. So imagine that you want to build a house. And so you hire the best construction team on the planet, the best of the best workers. And you also invest in the best supplies, the most premium supplies. But if you tell your workers one day build a wall and the next day demolish the wall, well, you won't get a house, right? And so in this analogy, the supplies would be the food and supplements. The workers may be like the body getting stronger through exercise, but the orders given to the workers is more like your environment, information that your body takes in. And so if the information you take in is chaotic, it will not nurture health. Even if you have the best supply, the best like nutrients, from food and supplements, and even if you are in shape. Because your body needs its environment to like grow and evolve and repair or destroy itself based on the environment. So that's for information. Now what about energy? Like, what does it mean, energy? Well, first off, the energy in your body is actually mostly electrical, not chemical, which is the most predominant paradigm today. So, of course, there are biochemical reactions in the body, of course, hundreds of thousands every second. But they all require an electric spark to start. They don't start by themselves. And what's really important to note is that health requires a sufficient voltage. And voltage, like in a battery, it simply means enough stored electrons. And just as a reminder, electricity is simply the flow of electrons. And electrons are the subatomic particles who have a negative charge. That's the things that are, quote unquote, spinning around the atom. So that's the first thing. Energy in the body is mostly electrical, not chemical. And what about ATP, right? Because the mainstream paradigm is about like ATP is the energy currency of the human body, right? The mitochondria inside each of our cells make ATP, and that's the energy of our body. So ATP does contain energy in the phosphate bond. So that's the bond that's here, right? Like these are 3 phosphates because TP means triphosphate, 3 phosphates. And this energy is released when it's turned into ADP, so diphosphate means 2 phosphates. But more importantly, ATP keeps proteins in the right conformation, in the right shape for biochemical reactions to occur, to happen, right? If proteins are not shaped properly, it will make a mess. But it's been clearly shown, and I believe the researcher is called Gilbert Ling, the one who showed that ATP itself is far from sufficient to power the human body. It's impossible to power the human body with ATP alone. So there is more to the picture. It's not just chemical. So what's going on? Well, as I said, it's actually electrical. And so if we have electricity, we need a battery, the biological battery. And in biological organisms like your body, water adopts different properties. That is, it's not ice, obviously. It's not steam, obviously, but it's not just like liquid water. It's not like what you drink. It's actually structured water. And the reason why I put a lot of hexagons is because it's shape. It's layers of hexagonal crystals, basically. And this new state, structured water, also called EZ for exclusion zone, it makes energy storage, communication, and eventually life possible. And what's really magical, again, you can meditate on that all you want. Like this new property happens spontaneously inside living tissues, and it will form a liquid crystal. And I know liquid crystal sounds fancy, but every one of our screens, of your screens, are made up of liquid crystals. So they are well known in technology. That's LCD. An LCD screen simply means liquid crystal display. So we really know how liquid crystals work, and structured water is one. And so it has the potential for intelligence, just like screens. It can do a lot of things. It can carry electricity, and it's very exciting. But so the point to take home really is that health, the little heart at the center, it requires both to be efficient, which means lots of energy, and coherent, which means the right information. And one thing that the Chinese knew all along, because in Chinese medicine we say humans are between heaven and earth. Humans. And what does it mean? The sun is basically what we call the cathode, and the earth is an anode. The cathode is simply the positive pole of a battery, and the anode is the negative pole of a battery. We are connected to the sun wirelessly through our eyes and skin. We are connected to the earth, hopefully wired, like literally bare feet on the earth, like I am now. And the human body is a semiconductor. So it's not an insulator, which means insulator means no electrons, no electricity runs through. It does nothing, basically. It's not either a conductor, which means like electricity runs uninhibited and just flows. It's a semiconductor. And semiconductors are the basis of all electronics, all computers. Because semiconductors basically, sometimes electricity passes, sometimes it doesn't. Yes, I know. Right. So it's how the whole technology works and exactly how life works. Your body is a quantum computer, more or less. So with all that said, go a little bit into clinical relevance. I know it's a lot of theory. Let's make it like, okay, so what does it mean in terms of my health? I will give a few examples and we can talk more about it in the questions part. But yeah, just wanted to, how to say, illustrate that with some examples. First, let's talk about the thyroid. So hypothyroidism is pretty widespread, unfortunately, especially among women. And most healthcare professionals, whether it's like conventional or maybe even functional medicine doctors, they look at TSH, which is the thyroid stimulating hormone, which is released by the pituitary to stimulate the production of T4, which is the inactive thyroid hormone, which is hopefully turned into the active form, which is T3. The problem is most of these professionals forget about TRH, which is the thyroid releasing hormone. And TRH is secreted by the hypothalamus when morning light, specifically morning light, enters the eye. And TRH is what tells the pituitary to release TSH. And I know it sounds like sciencey, but basically what it means is going on a thyroid protocol without addressing the light environment, it's a losing battle. And yeah, fluoride doesn't help. For another reason, but fluoride is a poison for the thyroid. So that's one example. The other thing, I just want to like connect a few dots for you guys. Probably have heard about inflammation, that you usually don't want too much of it. Some people say that the root cause of all diseases is inflammation. Inflammation is an integral part of redox reactions. Redox simply means reduction / oxidation, right? And it's how biology works. Like many of your biochemical reactions are redox reactions. But this inflammation can be kept under control as long as you have enough electrons. Basically, an inflammatory agent is something that has lost its electrons and that's trying to get them, and so it's like goes on a rampage to get it. But so if it has enough electrons, it will reduce inflammation. That's why there is a link between inflammation and antioxidant, right? Reduction, oxidation. When it's oxidized, it causes inflammation. So you need antioxidants to reduce inflammation. And electrons are the most fundamental antioxidants. And what about acidity? Like we hear a lot, especially in the alternative health, about let's not be acidic, let's be alkaline, right? Well, first off, I hope that you understand that you have to be acidic in some areas of your body and alkaline in others, otherwise you will die. But what is acidity? If you remember organic chemistry from maybe high school, the pH is minus the logarithmic of the concentration of H+. Well, what does that mean? It simply means that the more protons, H+ is a proton, the more protons you have, which are basically positive charge, the less acidic you are. Which means the more electrons you have, the less acidic you are, right? So it all goes back to electrons, to electricity. And so how do you get rid of protons? You have more electrons and you sweat and so on. So that's for inflammation. And then there are many other specific topics. So I already mentioned fluoride. Fluoride competes with oxygen and can actually reduce your capacity to produce energy at the fundamental level, your mitochondria. Things like bedtime, let's say go to bed at 10 p.m. It's not helpful, in my opinion. Like your bedtime should vary, especially if you are away from the equator. Like if you are at the equator, which most people aren't, you can go to bed every time, every day of the year at the same time. Like if you live like in Finland, like I used to, going to bed at 10 when the sun sets at 3 p.m. Not stupid. And going to bed at 10 when the sun sets at 1 a.m. in the summer, it's also dumb, right? So the bedtime should vary with the season and it's totally normal. And it also has to do with vitamin D and melatonin cycles. I don't recommend vitamin D supplementation, especially in the winter. And I don't recommend melatonin supplementation ever, like except in emergency cases. Like if you have to realize that both vitamin D and melatonin are the only hormones you can just buy over the counter. And then going on a gut health protocol without exposing your belly to sunlight is stupid as well. Like you should, like sunlight is a huge regulator of your microbiome. It's huge. So just a few things that make it clinically relevant to consider energy and information at the quantum scale for many common problems nowadays. So you may be like, okay, so what do I do with this? Cool, thank you for this information. What do I do with this now? So I'm over with the theory. Now let's get into the practical stuff that you can take home. Hopefully these things are valuable. So let's start with the morning routine. So 5 things to make your mornings grander. Basically, and you will notice that I don't put specific times because it will vary again over the year. So it may be that during summer, you always wake up with the sun when the sun is up. But in the winter, you always wake up before sunrise. And if you do, you want to block blue light because there is no blue light in the sky. So you want to block blue light before sunrise. At sunrise, which is more exciting, or like whenever you wake up, if the sun rises at 4 a.m. like it was in summer in Finland, I was not waking up at 4 a.m. I was waking up maybe 5:30. But at sunrise or whenever you wake up, go outside, naked eyes, no lenses if possible, no glasses because they filter out some of the light. And you want your bare feet on the earth at least 5 minutes. The more, the better, right? You want to move your body in some capacity, wake up everything, wake up your tissues, mobilize. You want to hydrate with minerals. Sea salt is great. You can add other fancy stuff, but start with good sea salt. Your blood is supposed to have the same mineral composition of the old oceans of the earth, like before the Cambrian explosion. So old. But so the bloodstream is essentially the ocean within. That's why we are on land and not in the ocean anymore, because we carry the ocean within us. And having a protein-rich breakfast soon after waking up, if possible. Many people like intermittent fasting, and sometimes the body needs it, but most of the time, if you want to balance out the hormones, breakfast is supposed to be grandiose, right? It's where you're supposed to feed your body. It will set the whole circadian rhythm for the rest of the day. And then dinner should not be the biggest meal, but I will come to that in a second. That's for the morning. It will really make a massive difference. I had a client a couple months ago. We just implemented this and the evening routine I will share with you in a second. And within 2 weeks, she started to sleep again, wake up by herself without an alarm clock, even though it had been years that she needed melatonin to fall asleep. That's the power of having the right information. So basically, your sleep starts when you wake up. Now, what about daily habits? 11 daily habits for effortless energy. I could probably write more. These are the few that came to mind at first and probably the most important. So, as much as possible, when you're inside, invite nature in. What does it mean? Open the window. Like even if you're in your car, commuting to your office, just crack the window open. It's enough to invite sunlight, even if it's cloudy, even if it rains, in. And so you get the right information, even in your car, even at home, even in your office. And you don't have to have direct sunlight. Okay? Again, it's like quantum effects. It's not like straight lines. It's spreading everywhere as long as you open it. Of course, you want to take regular breaks, especially at work, for movement, hydration, sunlight, and grounding if possible. Grounding simply means bare feet on the earth, touching the earth or touching a tree. You want to filter the blue light coming out of your screens. The best software for that is iristech.co. Like you can find it on iristech.co. It's called Iris. It costs about $15 for a lifetime. You can try it for free for 7 days, and it's just the best. There is a day mode, which is great, really soothes the eyes, and then night mode, which is like completely red, and so you can keep using the technology at night. If you have indoor lighting that's on, use blue light blocking glasses. I don't have any right now to show you, but they will be helpful for that. You can do, if you feel fancy, do some photobiomodulation, which is the scientific term for red light therapy, which is basically using a hopefully high quality light panel that shines red light and infrared light on your body for a myriad of benefits. And many people are just deficient in red and infrared light because you don't get any of that indoors. Again, as much as possible, stay away from sources of NN EMF. What does it mean? Non-native electromagnetic fields. So electromagnetic fields are natural, like the Schumann resonance of the Earth is one. Non-native mean artificial, human-made, right? Man-made. So the phone is one. Please don't put your phone by your ear. Use earbuds or use the speaker in front of you, but don't put it here. And actually, anecdote, if you own an iPhone, it's actually written in the manual to not put it by your ear, by your brain. Like the closer you are to a source of EMF, non-native EMF, the more powerful it is. So phone, Wi-Fi router, please turn it off at night. Wireless earbuds, again, they are like just by your brain in your skull. So not a good idea, all that stuff. And the best protection against non-native EMFs is distance and then bare feet on the earth. Then you want to be nose breathing at all times and do some CO2, carbon dioxide tolerance training, which means reduce breathing, breath holds, and training your tolerance to carbon dioxide. If you have questions about it, we can go into it, but basically it will improve your capacity to generate energy at the cellular level. Gratitude for air, food, and water, and whatever. Gratitude, it's been shown by the HeartMath Institute to be the most coherence-inducing emotion. So when you feel gratitude, like if you think about it, if your body, if each one of your cells is actually listening to your environment, including your emotions, when you feel grateful, they are like, cool, so like let's be healthy. If he is grateful or she is grateful, let's be healthy. But if you're like constantly worried and complaining in victim mentality, it's like, well, he's probably or she's probably in survival mode, so we probably should go into stress reactions and so on, right? So gratitude as much as possible, and not thinking gratitude, feeling it. Things like cold exposure, really powerful. Cold is actually one of the few things that can improve at the atomic level your capacity to tunnel electrons, which means make more energy. It's massive. Of course, use common sense. Don't do it every day if you're not used to it. Don't jump in an ice bath if you're not used to it. Build up to it. But cold exposure is huge. Sauna, huge as well. The heat is actually infrared light. And also you will sweat, so you will expel excess protons, so reduce the acidity of where it's not needed. 10, eliminate fluoride from your life because it's useless and it's a poison. And 11, burning fat, which like if you're healthy, you should be burning fat most of the time, even if you eat carbohydrates and sugar. And seafood, because it contains many things, iodine, many other minerals, but also DHA, which is a type of omega-3. And DHA increases the amount of electrons in your body, basically. And it's really important. So that's for the daily habits. And then the top 5 tweaks to create the perfect evening routine, which again, I gave to my client who now sleeps like a baby. And one secret, that's really fun. So those 5 things. Eat dinner before dusk. So it means, again, I don't give prescriptions. I don't say eat dinner before 6 p.m. because it depends. If you are like I am in France in summer solstice, the sun sets at like 10 p.m. It's fine to have dinner at 8. Don't eat like stupid, but don't you can eat at 8. That's fine. It's like you should eat basically when the sun is out. That's yeah. Avoid having tons of sugar. It will disrupt melatonin and many other hormones, especially if you don't have a good metabolism. You may want to walk after dinner, especially if you know that you have eaten a little bit too much or some sugar. It will really help with the insulin response. After sunset, you want to block as much blue light as possible, just like before sunrise, right? And you can use some lighting, but you can use blue light blocking glasses. You can use the filter on your screens, and you can use dim orange or red floor lamps, not on the ceiling floor lamps. Why? Because when a light is above our head, the sun is used, the sun is overhead. When you have overhead, it means it's stable. If it's on the floor, it's less. It's a big deal. Candles are great. Don't use commercial candles; they are toxic. Use beeswax. They are actually releasing electrons in the air, so they are releasing negative ions. You can take a warm bath, shower, or sauna. Why? Because getting warm will actually kickstart the cooling down of your body, which will allow the melatonin and to like repair your mitochondria to produce more energy, right? It's basically anti-aging to be cold at night. And avoid technology, like within reason, like don't stress yourself out and like, right? But like avoid technology a little bit, especially like the last, I don't know, 20 minutes at least, and let your body doze off, basically. It will naturally fall asleep when it needs to. If you don't, of course, consume super stimulating content. If you have many arguments with your partner, not a good idea. And so that's the secret. Cuddling is great because skin to skin generates a lot of infrared light. It's warmth, and it's actually a great way to get the benefit of infrared light in, well, indoors, basically, but especially in the winter. So that's for the evening routine. Now, little gift to you guys. You can screenshot this. You can watch the recording and click on the link. So it's my current free ebook, and I'm actually working on a new one, which would be all about procrastination. Because what I observe is that even if you give the best information to people, there is still a lot of self-sabotage, a lot of procrastination. So because I'm committed to give people results, I want to address this big thing, which is procrastination. So it will be coming up soon. So actually, if you click on this link or scan the QR code, you will be redirected to the sign up page for my newsletter, and I will advertise the new ebook there. So if you want to stay tuned for it, just sign up. You can unsubscribe at any time. No like hard feelings. So yeah, that's my free ebook at the moment, working on a new one on procrastination. Yeah, so that's basically it. Thank you all for your time and attention. I don't know what time it is. Perfect. And it's time for you guys to share your questions. I will read the chat because I saw there were a couple of things. Okay. So yeah, if you guys have questions, that's the time to do it.
What up, sir?
Hello, Phil.
Good, awesome information to start.
Thank you, sir.
One question that popped up was the vitamin D stuff. What are your thoughts are on like somebody like, for example, this is a personal question, obviously, are the people who genetically have a disposition for vitamin D supplement, like they're slow adapters?
Yeah.
I would assume, yes, you would agree with that if that person knows that knowledge.
Yeah, so there is a variance. So a couple of things. It could be that for some people, vitamin D supplementation is life-giving. Absolutely. I would say for the average person, I would not recommend it. So a few things on what you just shared. Let's remember that genes can be altered based on your environment. That's called epigenetics. right? And unless you have a dysfunction, which is pretty rare, humans evolved with the sun and survived and thrived. Like that being said, there are many things you can do to improve your body's ability to generate its own vitamin D. First off, you need to not do like most people, which is staying indoors 360 days of the year and 5 days in the middle of July on the beach from like noon to like 4. Don't do that. You want to build what we call a solar callus, right? You want to accustom your body to use sunlight, which basically means in practice, like practically speaking, just go outside in the sun every day of the year. And morning light and evening light is actually really soothing for the body and will prepare for stronger lights, which is like the UV, which is where vitamin D is needed. And actually, let me pull up a slide again that may be helpful for this question as well. Where is it? This one. So vitamin D, you need your UVB light, ultraviolet B. And there is vitamin D only when the sun is above 30 degrees above horizon. If you go outside, even if you expose your skin and the sun is below 30 degrees, you will not get vitamin D. So you actually need to go out when the sun is pretty high in the sky. You can use apps online to see where the sun is at, like there is SunCalc here, like you can see where the sun is in your location. Well, it's like Spain, but at this time, the sun is like 9 degrees above horizon, right? So because it's like almost 8 p.m. for me, so it's like even below that, so there's not even any UVA. So things that to keep in mind. And the other last thing I will say about vitamin D is you need the nutrients to make it, which means vitamin A. Many people are deficient in it. You need magnesium, and you actually also need to get rid of fluoride because fluoride inhibits the action of magnesium in your body. So get rid of fluoride and you will have better vitamin D. So I hope it gives you some clues, but I would say you can supplement it with vitamin D initially. We don't really know about the long-term effects because it's like you're literally giving your hormone to your body. But I would still implement all these tactics to improve the body's ability to generate its own. And every year it gets better. Every year you follow these principles, it gets easier. But thank you for the question.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Justine, for attending. Anything else?
Hey, Robin, just wanted to acknowledge this wonderful presentation. It was a great reminder in many ways. The couple of things that were new for me is I didn't know that beeswax candles release negative ions. That's a very fascinating thing because I was actually just looking into getting like a wholesale beeswax candles, you know, so versus like buying them one at a time, like just get a nice big pack of them and then just have them around. So that will further encourage me to go through on that end to do that. And then also the whole aspect of, you said red light when it comes to skin on skin contact?
It's more infrared.
Infrared. Okay. Yeah, that's also very fascinating. I didn't know that little tidbit as
and
well.
It works with pets as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like
well,
if you like cuddle your pet, you will get some infrared plus like all the microbiome benefits and so on. But yeah, you get some infrared when you get warm basically. And obviously like when you start a fire in the winter, right, you get infrared indoors, which is really beneficial.
Gotcha. I think I don't really have, I was actually also kind of curious about the vitamin D supplementation, something that I feel like I don't really need, but I've been taking some throughout the summer. But would you say that it's even, you were saying specifically it's even worse to take it in the winter? Is that because it's potentially throwing off like your body's mechanism of understanding like what season it is and like your circadian clock and that might, what would be the like consequence of that ultimately?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for your reflection and your feedback. And I'm glad that you bring this up because it's the one thing I didn't address with Phil's question. So about the long-term consequences, we don't really know, right? But what I do know is that in many places in the world, depending on how high of a latitude you live in, there is a lot less UVB light in the winter, meaning a lot less opportunities to secrete vitamin D. But it's actually totally
Mm.
fine because the nights are longer and we're supposed to sleep longer and have more melatonin in the winter. So like it's a seesaw between vitamin D and melatonin. So you sleep less in the summer because there is more light, but you get more vitamin D. And in the winter,
Right.
you sleep more, but you get less vitamin D. And it's actually in the winter that you burn fat, theoretically, and your vitamin D is stored in your fat. So you have like a time release of vitamin D while you burn fat because you're supposed to be fasting more because the days are shorter. And it's like the seasonal scarcity and you're in ketosis. And melatonin will repair all of that as well, all the quote unquote damage from summer. And the problem comes from most people living in perpetual summer, like light-wise,
Mhm.
right? Meaning like you
And
always
also
have,
maybe diet wise too, right?
also
Like eating
completely, totally. Like
too
if you
much,
eat,
too much.
yeah, if you eat a date in Scotland in the middle of winter, it's a total mismatch for your body. It's like, what?
Mhm.
So yeah.
And is that because obviously through the lack of specific kinds of sun exposure, then that's going to not inhibit the process to metabolize these sugars correctly or efficiently, or how does that exactly translate as far as,
Yeah.
to the body?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things, and we can look at this through the lens of, again, energy and information. From the lens of through the lens of information, it's basically telling your body it's the middle of summer, like dates, whereas you are in the middle of winter. So like there is like, it's not coherent. So that's that. On the other end, more like on the energy side, you actually need sunlight to metabolize carbohydrates in the electron transport chain in your mitochondria. If you cannot metabolize them, it will just create inflammation and fat.
Gotcha. So ultimately, we're more wired if we're living throughout the seasons in an environment that is not closer to the equator, then ultimately we should be inhibiting or rather limiting how many carbohydrates we eat comparatively to the summer, spring months.
Yes. Yeah, and that's another big thing I also don't really like in the, let's say, carnivore or keto community. Like summer, you maybe not should, but like you can have carbs in the summer. It's the season of abundance, and you should actually get quite insulin resistant in the summer. That's the point. And that's, you should store fat in the summer, which most people are doing the opposite because they want the beach body. And then you should go into more ketosis fast more in winter. You should say all these things. So yes, there's a variation in your diet. That's also why I don't like blank statements. And yeah, like so again, if you eat within like what grows around you, and only when the sun is up. When I was in Finland in the winter, it meant 2 meals a day at most, because the sun was up between 10 and 3, and that's it. And the only carb that grows is like tubers. Now, of course, you could cheat the system by just eating a ton of potatoes, but like you see what I mean, right? It's if you eat through with the seasons, it's like fine. And conversely, in the summer in Finland, you have sunlight from 4 a.m. to 1 a.m. and you have honey and berries and all that stuff. So you can really stock up on carbs. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's something I've really, I've been inviting myself to get deeper into as far as just figuring out what's quote unquote in season in my area and really honoring that and seeing how my body changes with those rhythms because it is, I think, a little bit silly to be importing food across the world and or across the states in a way that then is, lacking coherence and creates a lot of imbalance in the body through the GI tract and then bleeding into a lot of other areas as well. So yeah, thanks again. I'm looking forward to reviewing this and kind of like actually taking some notes and seeing like what some of the reminders that I may have forgotten and start applying them. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, and thank you for asking. I will just add one note that many people ignore as well. When you grow food even locally within a greenhouse, it's messed up in terms of
Right.
information because you are filtering the light. You're transforming the light.
Right.
So it will grow, but it won't get the electromagnetic barcode from the sun. So it will be slightly
Got
different.
it. Yeah.
So you will feel it in the taste, but like basically greenhouse is growing food under artificial light, basically, even if it's outside.
Yeah, when you first brought that up, I recall when you said that in the past, it really made me start thinking about that aspect and how much that rings true. And yeah, so yeah, thank you for all the great insights, Robin. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, LD. Cool. Well, if there is one last question, I'll take it. Otherwise, pretty much time's up. Like starting to get like evening time for me, so. And so yeah, we'll post, like if you want the recording, just reach out to me. I will post it on YouTube shortly. And yeah.
I did the QR code, and on my side it came up as an error reading, just for your knowledge, Robin.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So maybe the QR code expired. I didn't know it was possible. Well, link should work, but thank you for asking. Oh, for like letting me know. I'll update that. Cool. Well, thank you again to everybody who attended and for the questions. And thanks for everybody who will watch the recording. I hope it was valuable. And so, yeah, if you want the recording, just reach out. And yeah, I hope to see you guys soon in another presentation.
All right. Thanks again, Robin, and have a great evening.
Thank you, guys.
See you, everyone.